Well, welcome everybody to the ordinary meeting of Council on the 23rd of November 2022. I'll ask Councillor Tony Hewson if he would read the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we meet on today. I humbly pay my respects to the people of the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal nations, their past, present and emerging elders. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Some housekeeping. If you're asked to evacuate, the emergency procedure is to exit via the door leading out of the building directly outside the council chambers and proceed to the footpath opposite the council chambers and await further instructions. Live streaming, recording and publishing of council meetings. This council meeting is being streamed live, recorded and published in accordance with council's live streaming in council meeting policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. The Chair and or the General Manager have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption, of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Today in public forum, we have one speaker, and that is Mr. Tim Murphy, who is speaking to item 1215, 22/21, DA 2022/0100, the residential subdivision at 96148 Long Street, BOOROWA. Tim will be speaking for the item, briefly presenting the proposal and outlining the vision for the subdivision. Thank you. Mr. Murphy, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address the council in relation to our DA for 128 lot subdivision at Long Street, BOOROWA. I'd firstly like to introduce myself and my brother Dan Murphy. We're both born and raised in Forbes. We're landowners and the developers of this site, to be known now as Donohue's Estate. We both personally have had a long association with BOOROWA and its community. We also have Rita with us tonight, who has done the lion's share of the work. It's not the brothers. We've had a strong vision from the beginning. We want Donohue's Estate to be a unique village edge community which offers high quality semi-rural living options and will contribute positively to the character, attraction and lifestyle of BOOROWA. The lots on offer at Donohue's Estate represent a desirable lifestyle blocks that will accommodate for the varying housing needs of residents at all stages of life. We think it's very unique. It's got its proximity and accessibility to what BOOROWA has to offer. The diversity of generously sized lots will insist on quality landscaping, tree-lined wide streets. We think it has great views and great natural environmental features. It'll be a sympathetic extension of the existing village of Brooklyn that has been planned as an exemplar of rural livability. We plan to deliver a quality, aesthetic, pleasing environment that can be proud of and the Devonshire can be proud of. The Donohue's Estate actually sets the benchmark for excellence in both aesthetics and amenity for future possible releases in Hilltops LGA. I would just like to briefly touch on our process that we've had and our experience with the council. We've had a very pleasant experience working with council, their planning staff during our entire DA process. We're very appreciative of the ongoing and open line of communication provided to us. All queries and questions were responded to efficiently and in the most professional manner. And we've also had some good, robust conversations as well. We should thank anyone at council who has had a part in assessing our DA and has provided their input and advice along the way. It's been very much a good dialogue. So tonight, in regard to our DA assessment report, we're very pleased with council's assessment and our proposal with recommendation for approval. Only one matter that I would like to mention that will be coming up, I believe, hopefully in the next meeting, is the renaming of Tip Road along the southern boundary of our site. It's a lengthy process, and it's one that first involves obtaining the support of the councillors, and then secondly, consideration and approval of the Geographic Names Board of New South Wales. Our request is that we seek your consideration and endorsement for the renaming of Tip Road to Merino Road. In conclusion, I wish to thank you for your time in considering the proposal to develop our site into Donovan's estate. We continue a great relationship with the council as we move forward to the next phase of this exciting project. The Donovan's estate will add economic benefit not only to the but to the Hilltops region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Next, we have the statement of ethical obligations, and Councillor Dodd will read those today.
Councillors are reminded that they will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of Hilltops local government area and the Hilltops Council, and that they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of their ability and judgment as per their oath of or affirmation of office made under section 233A of the Local Government Act 1993.
Thank you, Councillor. Next, attendance. We have apologies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are no apologies. Councillors are reminded Councillor Stadmiller is a leave of absence was granted at the last meeting. We also have two councillors who are requesting to attend via digital means, which is in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. Known as Councillor Fitzgerald and Councillor Foreman. And
it's noted that Councillor Flannery is not here.
Councillor Flannery is not here at this point. I understand he's on his way.
Thank you. Councillors and everybody, if you would stand for our sympathy.
We have to accept the,
pardon me.
Accept the digital things first. Put it to the vote.
Okay. Do we accept the digital attendance by our two councillors?
Those in favour?
Okay,
yep.
John Hewson. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, number 5, sympathy expressions. If we'd all be upstanding. Staff and members of the public be upstanding for a minute's silence to express our sympathy on the passing of Grace Southwell, Joan Nylon, Graham Butt, Mavis Eads, Naomi Buckley, Blair Blomfield, Trevor Green, Irene Ricketts, Alan Carmody, Lettice Aston, Gail Miner, Jane Wallace, Geraldina Young, Peggy Ricketts, and Vincent Hurley. Thank you, everyone. right, number 6 on the agenda, confirmation of the minutes for the council ordinary meeting for the 26th of October 2022. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Nacker. And a seconder?
Councillor Flannery is on his way.
Thank you. A seconder? Thank you. Any comments? Those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you. Next up, any disclosures of interest? Do we have any disclosures of interest? No, we don't. Thank you. And next, number 8, the mayoral minute. The mayoral minute is in front of you, and you see the recommendation that as a council we join with the Local Government New South Wales and Country Mayors Association in declaring a statewide road emergency, and that we write to the PM of Australia and the Premier of New South Wales pleading for immediate action. This was at the Country Mayors Association. Councils were asked to put this forward for us to support this petition. As we all know, the parlor states of our road, and I think at the Country Mayors it was up to 2.5 billion that the repair bill was being talked about. So,
Madam Mayor, just
yes.
a question: what's the value in declaring a statewide road emergency? Does that immediately force the federal government or state government to provide council with funds, or is it simply a stunt?
It's most probably a lobbying tactic, which I would not say it was a stunt. I would say it's a lobbying tactic, and it's to put pressure on both the governments to do this.
So there is no obligation for any funding to flow from this?
No,
Because
no, not at the moment.
We're
It's
not
just,
asking for funding here with this?
it's to put pressure on the governments to provide funding. That's how I read it.
Should there be a point C then, request funding to address the statewide road emergency?
I'm happy with that amendment, if you're happy to move that.
It's, Madam Mayor, with respect,
It's my motion.
it's your motion. I'm happy to, certainly I'd be happy to support a point C along those lines, because it's just at this particular stage, it's the money that I'm interested in rather than the political stunt that might be attached to it.
Well, and I'm happy for it to be included in the motion. I certainly am. And we do have that. If we read it, C, request funding to address the statewide emergency.
Show me the money.
Can we put that so boldly, do you think? Show us the money. Well, when we're talking about 2.5 billion at the moment, we do need to be shown the money, I think. I'm happy with that. I'll put it, any other comments? I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Unanimous. The next one, mayoral reports, as you see here. I might just make a comment on the Country Mayors meeting. That didn't finish till Friday, so I haven't been able to get a report, but I will put a report in on that meeting. There was some interesting information that was passed on to us, and I will certainly pass that on to you. So I will do a report on that, and that will be at the next meeting. I think everything else is as is. So I would ask, would somebody accept? Thank you. Armstrong. Thank you, Councillor Piper. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Move to number 10. Councillor reports, and Councillor Fitzgerald put together a report for us on the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. Before we move this, have you any comments that you would like to make, Councillor Fitzgerald?
No, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions, so I move the recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Any questions? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous.
Go back to Councillor.
It's the next one, isn't it? If we go to 10.2, and this is the New South Wales Public Libraries Association annual conference, and Councillor Dodd attended.
Thank you. It was great to be able to go to that because it was in our local region and it was actually the New South Wales Public Libraries Association. And it was great to hear about what libraries are doing, because libraries are community services which are run by local governments. And not only do they have books and ebooks and all those things, but there are so many different activities like literacy, teaching English, community information, technology use and training, and other inclusive activities. And it was great to hear about the wide range of activities that happen all over New South Wales. And particularly, it was great when talking to other councillors as well to find out that our library is so proactive. And so I would like to particularly thank our active and enthusiastic library staff across all three libraries, both for providing so many opportunities for our community and also for keeping us informed. There are other councils there and they don't really have an understanding of what's going on in their libraries, so I really appreciated that. There were some great speakers. The keynote speaker, Steve Simpson, who spoke on unwritten ground rules, it's well worth looking at that in not just for council, but whatever organisation you are part of. The other point is that the State Library New South Wales, and in that session they announced that the quadrennial funding, which has just expired and was increased in the last 4 terms, is going to remain increased. And so that is great news because that will flow on to our library. And I guess the summary points down there are that it came up a few times that we really need to plan and collaborate so libraries are accessible and used outside regular business hours. And that's a tricky thing because there's no staff there outside business hours, but it's worth thinking about that, especially with our joint use library being built at the moment, just that we really think about how after hours access is going to happen. And our library is innovative and responsive to our community, and that is a great asset. Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to attend.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Would somebody move?
Happy to.
Thank you. And second? Houston. All those in favour? Unanimous. Councillor Piper, your hand was up, wasn't it? Thank you. Next, councillor meetings attended, 10.3. We have down here, Councillor Armstrong, do you have anything more to add to yours?
Meetings as per the report, with an additional 2 meetings this afternoon with people, residents of Bribri pleading for some work to be done on the Clifton Bribri Road. Harvest has started out there and it's a death trap.
Thank you, Councillor. 2 other ones. Councillor Dodd?
As in the report, nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald, pardon me.
Well, we'll both answer as minuted.
Councillor Foreman?
As minuted, thank you.
Councillor Mackie? Councillor Piper?
Yeah, one I omitted was the morning breakfast for the business chamber in BOOROWA.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery?
Thank you. Meetings of Minister, the amendment states and numerous constituent meetings and phone calls that raised.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Meetings as minuted, and also one I know that I missed, but it was unfortunate that there was a glitch with our email system and I'd been dropped off the system, so I was unaware of the meeting at the time. Thanks to the General Manager, that's been resolved and I'm back on the list. So besides that, I had a number of meetings with constituents that I will mention, not only in regard to roads, but to put it in the words of someone who's a fair bit older than me and been here all their life, he's never seen a young township look so disgraceful. And the entrance to our town, if that's not enough, I don't know if anyone else walks in the front of our building out here, if everyone comes in the back door. When you leave tonight, just have a look out the front of our town chambers. It is disgraceful. It is not good enough. And that is, I can't put it any plainer and simple. If people can't see the neglect that's been happening with the young community and township, perhaps they need to get their head out of the clouds, hop in with me and go for a drive. I'm not talking tribe, I'm talking fact. When people have been here all their life and travelled this community all their life, and they comment that to me, how do you think we feel? If anyone in this room and you, Madam Mayor, think that doesn't reflect on you, I've got some news for you. It's reflecting on us all. As our leader, one would hope that you are communicating with the General Manager in regards to these matters and something being addressed to it. Instead, every month coming to these meetings, talking about it, going on about it, coming back 4 weeks later, and guess what? Nothing. And if anyone attempts to tell me that the attempt to do some wild slashing at the Millvale Road is dressing up our entrance, I've got some news for them. If you have a look at what the private people done, it's like a bowling green and lawn, like the other communities. Council let it get 2.5 foot high. It's not metric, I know. And then you attempt to do something about it. Just not good enough.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram, for those comments. And Councillor Hewson.
Microphone, please.
Constituent introduced in general, and also an inspection of Wombat Oval, where they've lost their ramp, getting cars on and off, I think. Anyway, I'll be putting a request in for funding for that. Or a loan. Already covered. Is it? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hewson.
Someone should have told.
The business paper.
Is it?
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to 11, community. Oh, pardon me, I need to move these. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Mackie, seconder, Councillor Dodd. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Number 11, community recognition scheme, and we do have one. Councillor Fitzgerald, would you like to talk about your nomination?
Yes, John Drew is a student I know who about 6 months ago decided that he wanted to do something to raise money for the charity canteen. At the time, he was involved in just growing his hair, as young people of 15, 16 do, and he thought he'd grow his hair as long as he could and then get it cut off in public to see if he could raise some money. He went around, organised donation tins, put them around Harden and Murrumbara, and organised a donation hub on the internet so the community could get behind his idea. He wanted to raise $300 or more. He was able to raise over $3,500. This shows the example of the youth at Hilltops that deserve our support. He's a young man showing the sort of leadership that we should be very proud of, and he will be a future leader in our community. I recommend him to you.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Happy to second his nomination.
Happen to second. Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Those in favour? Unanimous. and certainly a letter will be sent off promptly. Any others that we haven't brought up? No. All right, that leads us up to the General Manager's report, but we did have a speaker today. So if I can have a mover to move the late report 1215.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Don.
Right.
Okay.
Put it to move it up.
Beg your pardon?
Put it to move it up.
Oh, yes, put it to move it up.
Yep.
We did. Councillor Ingram did, and Councillor Don.
Yep. So
All in favour?
All those in favour?
Aye.
Pardon me.
Happy to help out.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
unanimous.
All right. And this is the late report. Here we go.
Move it, but we accept the late report.
Okay. We've moved it up, and now do we have a mover to accept this late report? Thank you, Councillor Dodd, and a seconder, Councillor Piper. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. And we have our director up there ready to speak to it.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So this is a report on a DA where you're asked to make a determination about a subdivision that's 128 lots in BOOROWA. The reason that it's in front of you is for a couple of reasons. The first is that we had we had 42 submissions over the 4 threshold, and even though those submissions were all in favour of the development, it was still brought to you for that reason. And the second reason is because the applicant has sought variations to the BOOROWA development control plan, and on 2 aspects, one around minimum road carriageway width, and the second is around the avoidance of 4-way intersections. I have to say it's a substantial report in terms of its content, and that's because it's a major development in our community, and there's been a lot of work that's gone into this from both the applicant and there's a lot of material on that, but also between our planning and engineering staff. And so Bill Vanry is here today to answer your technical questions around the report from a planning perspective, and of course the acting manager, director of infrastructure, can answer any technical questions around the infrastructure side of things. I'll leave it at that at this point.
Question?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question through to whoever is likely to respond. Stormwater drainage is a hot topic at the moment everywhere. It's a problem. I do note that there are a number of stormwater retention basins to be located within the subdivision. I'm just wondering whether water goes after those stormwater retention basins, and how council is going to maintain the 5 metre wide stormwater channels, given that I don't believe that any of the current plant is going to be able to fit inside that channel and mow it down to perhaps the standard that some of the residents may expect.
For you, Madam Mayor, their water cycle management plan submitted with the application pointed out that the stormwater drainage discharge points was in the corner of Rye Park Road and Long Street. There's another one on the southern side heading south along Long Street. Now, what we can only consider as part of a development application is when a development increases post-development flows. So their water cycle management plan has demonstrated they're actually decreasing from pre-development flows to post-development. They're decreasing it. And the simple fact of that is mainly because of their stormwater detention basins, and they're on a ridge. So there's a rocky outcropping, a ridge right on that site, and that's essentially works as the top of the catchment for that entire site. So the stormwater runoff ended up not being a huge issue for that site. So going forward as a reasonable reasonable conditions of consent, council can't request further stormwater development upgrading works if they're not actually increasing the post-development flows.
Okay. Is there a reason why the 5 metre open channel isn't piped?
The 5 metre open channel is for major events. So there's from memory, I believe they're designed for the 1 in 20 event, and the 1 in 100. I do believe that the major stormwater detention basin can hold. It'll sit at about, I think it's 0.5 metre deep at a 1 in 100 event, and any overflow has to go through that major channel. And that will have to be an open swell, because when it's an overflow, if you increase capacity on that pipe, it'll overflow the pipe. So it'll be an open drain to another drainage point. So it's like your contingency to your drainage system.
I'm just, once again, my concern is that that potentially that drain is going to have maintenance costs that are going to exceed council's capacity, or sorry, based upon expectations rather than council's capacity. Is there any way that the design can be modified so as to reduce the maintenance costs?
The applicants would still require to lodge a subdivision work certificate. So what we've got the concept design, concept engineering plans, and they're quite substantial concept engineering plans. They actually look like almost the final design. Mm-hmm. They still need to submit a subdivision work certificate application each stage, where the detailed design gets assessed by council's infrastructure directorate. So things like maintenance and all those sort of issues, they get considered at that point. So we're only assessing it in concept, so to speak.
Okay. Now, I have a question. Water and sewer are both. Water is a huge issue. Councillor Pipe on my right here was probably going to ask this question too, whether there's sufficient capacity in the downstream component of the pipe network to meet future demand for all 128 lots.
We referred the application to the infrastructure directorate, who's provided no objections. Further details on the actual water supply, I think there's a water supply management plan or what in BOOROWA, will have to be answered by infrastructure.
Through you, Madam Mayor, while you're still up.
Yeah, no problem.
We've just had, 2 or 3 weeks ago, BOOROWA was surrounded. Yes. We had water everywhere. I live in Long Street, and I know exactly where the proposal is going. Now, we've got our stormwater drain going through the middle of the development, and I think you stated it's going down to the corner of Long Street and Rye Park Road. Now, when it gets there, there's one pipe, and it's that big. That's all there is. And we've just had over there a major washaway that the Rye Park Wind Farm put in on a causeway that had one pipe. That's roughly one of my concerns about that. And then I'm still trying to have a look here at the actual plan. When I first saw it at the original meeting in BOOROWA, there was a couple of things that the lots of land open to Rye Park Road, there wasn't. There was only one entry in, and then other roads within the estate came to dead ends. Now, being on the bushfire brigade, that's a no-no. You've got to have roads connecting so they can all get out from one end. They don't have to go to an end and stop. I admit I haven't looked at this plan, the current one here, to see whether that's been rectified or not.
Right, yeah. So the stormwater, downstream stormwater from the subdivision, I'll say through you, Madam Mayor, the stormwater runoff from the subdivision, once it leaves the site, once it leaves that drainage reserve, you are correct, that is council's responsibility. As the water cycle management plan submitted with the application has demonstrated, that the pre-development flows of stormwater from the site is not going to be increased by the development itself. Council cannot reasonably apply a condition for them to upgrade the entire system. So it is council's responsibility. With the access way of Rye Park Road, during the assessment process, council staff, Transport for New South Wales and the applicant we had discussions about that access way, and the outcome was that the design was amended to remove that access from Rye Park Road. So then those properties will access from an internal road now. And there's, I think, a 2 or 3. Thank you, Jamie. We've got 1, 2. So we've got 3 shared driveways coming off a new road from inside the subdivision.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just while
Councillor Flanagan.
when you say that the stormwater won't be increased by the development, that doesn't mean the direction of the stormwater won't add to problems. At the moment, if it's just flowing with the lie of the land, it's going with the contour of the land, but if it's being channeled in a direction, the sums might change.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct. So the site currently drains. The applicant has designed the stormwater basins. There's one central located to detain flows coming down, and there's one down on the bottom corner of Rye Park Road and Long Street, and that's where the natural flows that the lie of the land heads down that way. And also from the ridge line, it goes in a few directions actually, but generally speaking, it goes to Rye Park Road, sort of in that central location, heads down towards the corner of Rye Park Road and Long Street, and goes through that channel underneath the road. And the design is, it's close to actually the natural flow, the way it actually, the land, the topography of the site actually lies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, a question just on the same subject. It's been stated that the stormwater will be reduced from what it is now. Who and how is that assessment made, and who puts their name to that bit of paper?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the applicant has engaged a suitably qualified civil engineer who specialises in stormwater design. That report was submitted to council for review by all departments, essentially infrastructure and planning, but also in this instance we referred the report off to an independent consultant to get an independent review as well. And they, they've responded with no objections, subject to condition. It has gone through.
I'm just worried how the science works, about how they can say that the stormwater flow will be reduced. I know I'm only a shearing contractor, but there must be a methodology. How do they work that out?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, I'm not the engineer. They use their drainage software and the modelling, and based on the design provided. And I'm sure someone from the infrastructure directorate might have to answer the actual modelling systems used.
I hope they didn't borrow it from Yarra or Molong or Condobolin or anywhere like that, or Lismore.
Madam Mayor again. If council is going to be responsible for the stormwater runoff once it gets through the estate, we better be damn sure of what we're doing, because there's only a little pipe that I believe the Tilt Wind Farm put in underneath the road. It goes straight across the road into a small gutter, which goes down the side of the road, which will go naturally into a dam belonging to another farmer, and that'll overflow and then keep going down Long Street. We better be sure of what we're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Piper. We've had a bit of discussion. Oh, Councillor Fitzgerald, pardon me.
Thank you. I emailed you all and the General Manager my concerns about dealing with such a large piece of work with such a short time to study it. I respect and expect that the Planning Department have done a lot of work on this, but there are still questions, some of which are being raised tonight, that we need to just get clarified in our minds. At the moment, I don't feel capable to make a final determination, and I'd just like to have some more time to cover things to do with, the water supply, 127 houses, what sort of drain that will have on the water supply to Boorowa, which is a concern. The time frame, I've tried to read through a lot of the document, but I haven't been able to get through it all. I don't have a hard copy, so I'm working my way through the computer copy. So I'd like to, and depending on how people feel, is say this is a very important piece of work, especially for Boorowa, and I would just like to have some more time to consider it. And I was wondering if we can defer this to the next meeting a month away. Should I
Through
move
you,
a
Madam
motion?
Mayor. So Councillor Fitzgerald, am I to understand that you're moving a motion to defer this to the next council meeting?
Yes, so that would be the import of what I said. Yep.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? There is not a seconder for that. So the motion to defer does not get up. I'm sorry, Councillor Fitzgerald. So then it goes back to the original motion. So do we have a mover and a seconder for that?
Do we have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Mackey, a seconder, and Councillor Dodd. We've heard from the experts and we've heard quite a bit of discussion. Is there anybody else who would like to make any comments? All right, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Mackey, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Hewson, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Piper, Councillor Dodd, Councillor Foreman are for, and against. Councillor Fitzgerald passed.
Motion's it will, for Boorowa and for Hilltops, it will be very important, I'm sure.
Don't get too excited, Madam Mayor.
Next, we move on to 12 and the General Manager's report, and 12/1/2207 election services 2024 for the council election. And
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Piper. General Manager, do you want to speak to this?
Through you, Madam Mayor. My experience with election services is it's always more cost effective to have the election agency run the election and combine resources when they are on offer. So that is the report that is before you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody want to
Question? To the
Yes.
General Manager, does council have the capacity to run the election?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's my considered opinion that we do not, given the logistics of marshalling the people to manning people for pre-booths, etc. We don't have the staff.
I'm thinking more of the requirements to have an active website and to produce all of the documentation and training beforehand.
I would put it to you, councillors, that I do not believe that's the case.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. The recommendation is in front of us. Do I have a
I'd like to move with an amendment, please.
Councillor Dodd and a seconder?
What's the amendment?
The amendment.
The amendment would be something like that before it goes out, so that it has been checked against the OLG annual report checklist and compliant with the OLG annual report checklist before it is.
Madam Mayor, I think there's a point of order in here.
Oh,
In that there's been no motion moved, so I don't think we can move an amendment. I think Councillor Dodd's moving a motion, I believe.
We have to move the motion and then you can move the amendment.
okay.
So, Councillor Dodd, you're moving.
I'll move a motion.
Moving the motion with the additional motion being that.
The amendment.
Then with an amendment after I've moved the motion and got a seconder. Is that right?
Okay, Councillor Piper. And we'll go back to Councillor Dodd with her amendment.
That's there now, Madam Mayor. Just as pointed out through the pre-session when we talked about this, there were some oversights highlighted where we did check and we've provided councillors with some additional information that will form part of the annual report, including the a notation in relation to phone and internet being indivisible given the technology platform of smartphones, etc. We can't discern what is phone versus internet, and a notation in that regard. Councillors, you have that in relation to the split of councillor expenses via councillors, both at the previous council and the current council, in accordance with the checklist, as well as additional information about a number of employees at a date in May, which was a directive. So I believe we have fulfilled the checklist, but we are happy for that the motion and do that double check against that before we release the document.
Councillor Don, are you happy with that? Right, so we go back to yep. The recommendation, I'll put it to the floor.
Actually, Councillor Dodd. The C says checked against the OLG checklist and checked OLG legislation. Once it's checked, what happens?
Yes, I'm not sure.
It'll be verified that it's either correct or incorrect. Is it
compliant with the OLG checklist and OLG legislation?
So
is that a better?
No. What you're asking is that council be confirmed that the annual report is compliant in all respects.
Perfect. Compliant that the annual report
is compliant in all respects.
Yes, whatever he said.
So do I take from that to look? Can I take? No, can I? Through you, Madam Mayor.
It's just that the report that was presented to us, that was attached, needs some extra bits added to it. So just want to make sure that that's
okay,
clear.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
And Councillor Armstrong.
Councillor Dodd, are you insinuating that staff have provided us with incorrect or untrue information? Because that's what I read out of that point there. That's what you're saying.
Incomplete. That the annual report that was attached to
that's not what dot point, with all respect, dot point C says. Checked against. So you're saying they haven't checked it, they provide us with incorrect or untrue information. Is that what you're saying?
What was the other one that we said? That it was compliant. And only because it's slightly different to what was attached to the original agenda. It's got extra information in it.
I'm sorry, you lost me.
So, were you? Yeah.
So that's the trouble with having workshops and not all councillors are present. I agree with you, Councillor Mackie, very much on that point. Yeah, you're right.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it was as I already stipulated, it was highlighted that there was omissions. There was more detail required in some of the areas. As I articulated, it's consistent with the previous annual reports prepared. That's not to say that it is correct, and certainly we are correcting it now. So I put my name to signing off against the checklist to ensure that the document goes out, does comply. My earnest belief is that the additional information provided tonight to councillors fulfills that checklist, but we are happy to attest to that again. Thank you.
Given the 35 people who will read it, I think it suffices.
Question to the General Manager in that regard. Each year, council is required to complete a certificate of compliance that relates to council's obligations to compliance. My understanding is that that certificate would extend to include this particular publication. Has the certificate of compliance been completed for this current year?
I know I have completed certificates of compliance, and then again, it's my earnest belief at the time I believed that we had been compliant, that it's found shortcomings. I take that and I'll amend it as appropriate. I can't recall whether I've done one for this year or not, or it's part of the audit process.
So any previous years you've signed off on?
Certainly, and it's been resolved by council to accept that document.
And this one hasn't been signed off on because it's in the current year.
Correct. I'm pretty sure I have not signed it.
It'd be probably about March next year. I think that you'd complete that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to speak against the motion. I don't know how we can put a motion up that says we need to check ourselves that we're compliant. I mean, it's a part of Local Government Act that we need to be compliant with all the latest legislation. And to say that we need to check ourselves that we're compliant, I mean, you shouldn't be putting something out on public display if you're not compliant with the existing legislation.
Through you, Madam
We
Mayor.
either put it on public display as a compliant document, or we don't put it on public display.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as I attest through the additional information that's been provided tonight, I believe we are fully compliant, and I stand by that, and I believe the document will go out complete. This is to assure councillors that you've done your due diligence and you will hold me to account. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Any other comments? I'll put it to the floor. Those,
Sorry, Councillor.
right? Those in favour?
Councillor Rolls, Councillor Houston, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Piper, Councillor Dodd, Councillor Former, Councillor Fitzgerald. Those against, Councillor Mack.
Thank you, councillors. We'll turn to 12. I think they are. Councillors, you can hear me? Okay. Turn to 12.3.2209, and that's the Canberra Regional Joint Organisation. And
Move the recommendation.
thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ingram. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you.
One comment I would make, that I did use the word tangible. I just don't see that, but anyway, thank you for the report.
Madam Mayor, I did propose to ask a question with that, that related to the risk implications. And I'm just wondering what the consequences.
Point of order.
Yeah.
That matter's been dealt with.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Not a problem, Councillor Ingram.
Now you two aren't getting them mixed. I thought I was the only one that did that. Right, let's turn to 12.4.2210, and that's the draft asset management policy.
So through you, Madam Mayor, I did send out a recommendation from staff for consideration by councillors as part of this motion, which there's been some concerns that the legislation referred to in the policies is either not current or correct. The affirmation from staff is it is correct, notwithstanding that I have not checked it personally. So to allay concerns for your consideration is that all policies, not only the ones that appear tonight, but ones that have been passed, that each policy will be cross-checked against to ensure that the legislation reference is current and correct. Again, it's our attestation that it is. However, we need to be sure and to assure councillors a report will be brought back to council affirming that cross-check has been made. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. So you're saying that?
So what I'm saying is that there's each of these policies tonight will obviously be considered by councillors to receive a note, put on public exhibition, and the comment in relation to submissions. But just in relation to the need to assure councillors that the legislation referenced not only in these policies that will go out, and we will do this process before these policies go out to make sure that it is current and correct, the legislation reference to. But we will also, as a matter of course, for good governance, go back across those policies that have already been dealt with by council, and a report be brought back to council affirming that we have undertaken a review and any updates that are required have been made, so that you are assured that we have fulfilled our governance obligations and the policies are full and up to date. Thank you.
Thank you. So, do I have a mover? Yes.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to suggest that perhaps we should be removing those references from these policies entirely and instead replacing them with some words referring to relevant legislation. And then the General Manager can have his staff update those references as an appendix or some other pertinent document to remove this, because clearly the Local Government Regulation 2021 is a reality and the Local Government General Regulation 2005 is not. There's Australian standards in there that are well and truly defunct. And there are references to work health and safety legislation, potentially where there don't need to be references to work health and safety legislation. So I'd just suggest there probably needs to be a bit of a revamp in the format to remove that opportunity for ambiguity to occur, and to push that aspect of it down to an administrative function rather than a policy function of council.
I'd welcome that amendment, and on the basis of that, before it goes before you, the councillors, for all council policies, the reference to legislation be removed for all policies.
And that policy and that legislation to be checked before it becomes.
Well, what will happen then is it becomes, as Councillor Armstrong, if I've interpreted correctly, is that it then becomes part of our internal procedures, that we ensure that we comply with the legislation, rather than having to update it over and over through that legislation. So,
is that correct, Councillor Armstrong?
I'm happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Okay.
But I do have a question.
Yes.
What would be without a question? I note on in item 1.1 principles that we have a proposed principle to operate a cross-function asset management working group to oversee asset management responsibilities and to coordinate, advise and facilitate the implementation of the adopted asset management strategy. We've crossed out to operate a cross-function asset management working group to oversee asset management responsibilities and to coordinate, advise on and facilitate the implementation of the adopted asset management strategy. I'm just wondering, why weren't the original words satisfactory? Given they look pretty similar to me. I'm just, I do recollect from the workshop there were different words in there, entirely different words in there, but they appear to have changed and gone back to the originals. I'm just wondering, what's the intent here with this? Is it the intent of the existing policy, or how's it to work?
I noticed that too, Councillor Armstrong, and I wondered if the Asset Management Working Group used to be called the Strategic Asset Management Committee, because that's what it is in 1.2, and that's been changed. I wondered if it was just had been changed and then changed again.
It was just called the Asset Management Committee when I formed it.
I believe, Councillor Ingram, this is an entirely different committee. This is one composed of staff, not councillors. Given that this would be a day-to-day management issue, and that would fall within the realm of the General Manager.
Mr. Muller, have you got a comment on this?
No, I don't actually understand. I believe it's the same sentence. So, I mean, that's just through the editing process at some point that was reworded and not done. But the asset management working group, it actually should be termed as resolved in the June 2022 meeting. The title used in that, this policy needs to be updated to that title for this policy. And that will be the amendment that we'll make in relation to that. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
A question? I'm confused now. How many asset management working groups do we have? Do we have one comprising 3 councillors and some staff? Or do we have an interdepartmental cross function working group within the staff?
No, it's the one group. The cross-functional component is so that it's not limited to just infrastructure. That it's just emphasising that it can be a whole of council presenting to the councillors at that group. Thank you.
Mr. Muller, would you like to make some points? You're not.
Just question.
Yes.
I would have thought prepare and adopt asset management plans should be dot point number 1. And the other question through you, Madam Mayor, is if the General Manager could tell us what the purpose of a policy or its principles are, because I'm just wondering whether we achieve the principles and what the consequences of not achieving the principles are.
Through you, Madam Mayor, broadly in relation to the policies, it sets the broad objectives as set by you, the councillors. The principles are the guiding things that we seek to achieve through the adherence to the policy. It's as simple as that. It's just a governing document. The detail where I suppose rubber hits the road really is formed through the asset group and the practical application through adherence to trying to achieve the operational plan delivery program and more broadly the resourcing strategies and the community strategic plan.
Well, I have concerns with dot point number 1, sustainability, preserving council's assets, in brackets, maintaining their overall condition, close brackets, for future generations. If you look at the current roads, we get a big fail on that. So I don't know that we should have that as dot point number 1. If it's going to be the principle, our number 1 guiding principle, we need to substantially improve our policy achievements. I would have thought prepare and adopt, whilst it might be semantics, prepare and adopt asset management plans should be dot point number 1, and then everything would flow from that. But if you have an asset management policy, I would hope you'd have plans, so maybe you don't even need to state that. Dot point number 2, liability management, ensuring that existing assets are safe for use by the current generation, so we're not worried about future generations. Isn't that covered by dot point number 1? I know it's semantics, but I read this and think, really, what are we trying to say?
Through your council, we can certainly move the prepare and adopt to number 1 and ensure that it is current and future, because it is current and future. Again, this was trying to encapsulate all the broad principles that existed in the existing asset management policy without deviating from what had previously been achieved, and trying to improve it. And we can take all of those comments on board.
Councillor, are you suggesting I should defer this policy?
Yeah, could it be deferred so we could bring it back? And it needs tidying up. If you're going to put a policy out on display, it's got to be not duplicitous and it's got to be not contradictory.
I'll second to defer.
I just on that point, the councillors, you will vote on that. Can I just ensure that we capture point D to move into I'd like to have the point D adopted at some point.
I'll move that this be deferred and that defer
this policy.
Defer this policy for the next council meeting. And point B that I'm just trying to read where it's gone. Are you copying and pasting? Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
Just a question, Mr. General Manager. Deferred, does that make any difference as far as the legislative requirement?
Not in relation to the asset management, not in relation to this policy in particular, as I understand it. It is a policy. It's the direction. It's the sentiment of council on what we want to achieve and what the principles guide the documents. That we have a asset strategic working group in place and functioning. That will continue. There's nothing in this policy that would stop that. So operations would continue.
Okay. All right. So we'll put it to the vote. It's before you that council defer the report and for all council policies, the reference to legislation be removed from all policies. Those in favour?
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Mackey, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Hewson, Armstrong, Piper, Foreman. Those against? Councillor Dodd and Fitzgerald.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Let's turn to the next one, which is the draft 12.5, 22.11 draft building near underground assets policy. And the recommendation is there. Do I have a mover?
I'll move it with a suggested change of words.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and seconded by Councillor Flannery. Councillor Armstrong.
Just in regard to item 4.2, conditions for applications, I note that bullet point 4 there, the structure is considered by council not to jeopardise council's assets. My suggestion would be that with those words be replaced with the structure is not considered to jeopardise or impinge the performance, useful life or utility of council assets.
Any objection?
Or impinge the performance, useful life or utility of council's assets.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
And I have a question in regards to 5. Now, someone please explain to me how this document is going to release council from all liabilities associated with the presence of an asset, subterranean asset, because I don't believe that this document can do that.
I will check the wording of that. However, the intent is that we are not held accountable for if we've been told that something is not there and it is.
The words are council is indemnified from all liabilities associated with the presence of the asset. So I would expect that council's expectations there is that the council has a blanket indemnity simply because it has an asset in the ground. I'd like to know how that's going to work. And what advice people believe it's going to work.
I'd have to defer to the Director of Infrastructure on that. I believe it was a blanket statement used, but if
this is
there's more.
Through you, Madam Mayor, what we normally do with that, Councillor Armstrong, is it's like dial before you dig. Sometimes the plans are not up to date, so the service we think it's here is not actually in the right spot, so it's maybe a half a meter away or whatever, and that's basically what it means to indemnify us if it is hit. And that's basically what Dial Before You Dig does, and Telstra and those guys.
I understand what Dial. Thank you for that. I understand what Dial Before You Dig does, but that item 5 there doesn't mention anything about things located in the wrong location. Its council is indemnified from all liabilities associated with the presence of the asset. So if we dig in the wrong spot, then I don't really see how council could expect someone else to indemnify them because we've dug in the wrong spot. So, or we've told someone to dig in the wrong spot, or the asset incurs failure, and there is a liability generated as a result of it. So, I'm just at a bit of a loss. I understand what you're trying to do with it, but I think that it's a very poor selection of words to do it. I think that needs to be examined far more carefully. And I believe if we're going to talk about indemnification from all liabilities, we better get some pretty good legal advice on that.
Councillor, are you suggesting to defer this policy?
Well, I'm suggesting that needs to be clarified, and it's certainly with respect. If no one in this room understands it, then I would suggest that no one outside the room understands it either. So let's get some clarification on it.
On that note, I'll move to defer the policy then.
Councillor Ingram.
And you just can't contract yourself out of liability. That's a simple principle of law.
Can I just clarify when it says council will only consider application proposals if, and then we go to there, doesn't that make sense? To me, it makes sense.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to answer some of the questions. Nothing that we write in our policies, even though the wording otherwise, and I think with some legal advice we can tighten up the intent on that part, and we certainly do that before we put it out on public exhibition. However, you're quite right. Nothing that we write in here will indemnify us against the legal obligations. Right. Yep.
Can I just ask a question first? These policies, are they draft ones from OLG or are they in-house?
There has been a blend over time, but this policy, I believe, is a refresher of a policy that already existed, using some of those words. So
it's an updating of a...
It's intended to be an update. So there we have
okay,
it.
so if it's updated, it's to our benefit to make sure that it is as tight as possible, as Councillor Armstrong has indicated.
Madam Mayor, just a clarification. We're going to vote on a deferment of this until we get legal advice, or are we just going to rewrite it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the deferral is you're using the best endeavours to bring it back to the next council meeting, addressing the concerns of councillors. So that will form part of get legal advice on the wording of that statement, amongst the other elements that Councillor Armstrong's highlighted.
Okay. Everybody clear?
Councillors Fitzgerald and Foreman, are you for or against the motion to defer? To defer?
To defer for.
To defer, both to defer.
Just a point. At times, the microphone
Matter's
from
been
the
point of order.
Yes.
The matter's been dealt with.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Can I just make the statement I was making? At times,
Point of order.
The
from
matter has
council
been.
chambers breaks up and we cannot hear. I'm talking about the audio. It breaks
Oh,
up.
righto.
We cannot hear. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear us?
Pardon?
Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Would you
now.
like us? Would you like us to repeat that last
No,
one?
it's fine now. Thank
You're
you.
Thank
confused
you.
again.
Thank you. We'll have to
Councillor
make sure we
Fitzgerald
speak
is
up.
right. We didn't hear the last the voting section, so but we can hear now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors. All right, let's go to the next one, which is the draft pressure. Yes, the draft pressure sewer systems policy. The recommendation is before you. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and a seconder, Councillor Ingram. Any discussion? No? Those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Yep. Next one is the draft alcohol. The draft alcohol and other drugs policy, that's 12.7, 2213. Recommendations.
The general manager for the.
I beg your pardon.
I've got a question for the general manager. This
Yes.
would appear to be an operational matter in that council, this would be a management policy rather than a council policy because councillors are not PCBUs and Section 5, Clause 5 of the New South Wales Work Health and Safety Act specifically excludes councillors from being PCBUs. So I'm just, why is this coming to council?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the advice I had that it, because of the very act you talk about, that we need a policy. Because of the word policy, it was put to me that it did need the construct of council, but if that's not the view of council, I'll take that on board and
Sorry, it's just that Section 5, Clause 5 of the New South Wales Work Health and Safety Act specifically excludes councillors being determined as PCBUs, persons conducting business undertakings. So I'm just, if councillors are specifically excluded, then the nominal PCBU in the first instance is a general manager, and then his subordinate staff. So I'm just wondering why this has got to come to council. I do support the general thrust of it, and I, on a personal note, I wouldn't work with the slap on the wrist basis and the pat on the head. I'd be working with a kick in the backside and a adios amigo. But that's the matter for the general manager rather than for council, because it's a day-to-day management issue. So are you simply asking us to not adopt this, but to note the report, receive and note it?
At this point, yes. Just receive and note.
All right, let's change it. Receive and note. Receive and note the report.
That being the case, I don't think it needs to go on public display for 28 days. You make the decision, the gavel falls, and that's it.
Yes, so that's why I think the recommendation is just A, as you noted, councillor, receive and note.
We'll take out the rest. All right. Okay, moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Flannery. Any other, Councillor Piper? Oh, right. Okay, those in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. Unanimous. We'll turn to the next one, which is draft equal opportunity policy.
Given what just happened with the last matter, and dot point A says receive and note the report, I imagine we did exactly the same with this one.
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so Councillor Ingram, you're moving to receive and note, and Councillor Flannery, you're seconding, is that?
So we take out the rest, just receive and note the report. Those in favour? Yes, unanimous. And we come now to 12.9, up to there. We'll just wait a minute. Here we go. 12.9, 22.15, the quarterly budget review. The recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Okay, Councillor Mackie. A seconder?
Councillor Armstrong.
Councillor Armstrong. Thank you. CFO, would you like to talk to this?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. Yep. You've got the report before you, and obviously it's adjusted for the period ending 30 September. Just bear in mind when you're looking through the detail that things like the rates, the annualisation of the rates income, whilst we haven't received all the cash to date. So that's just one thing to take into consideration. You see a highlight there about the reduction in materials and contracts, which has moved back. There's an increase of $14,000 for the relocation of the library books, which I highlighted in the bullet there under the general fund expenditure. And as well as that, there's been an allocation of suggested $10,000 for the Christmas lights promotion, and those two are actually offset against the $26,000 which was allocated in 22-23 for the athletic carnival that didn't go ahead in BOOROWA. So I just might point that out.
I'm sorry, just to consider that's the netball touch football.
Oh, netball touch football athletic, yep. So there's a suggestion that we'd allocate, and obviously once infrastructure purchased the lights, we obviously get several years of use out of those lights for the three major towns at this point. And we obviously have to find the $14,000 to relocate the library books. We've highlighted there some reductions in the capital grants contributions, particularly in the roads to recovery and the regional block grant, which is listed there. A net reduction in the LRCIP that we've listed there. And in the capital program, there was $15,000 purchased for installation of CCTV in Houston Park at Harden. And there were a few problems down there that in terms of behaviour. And as listed there, there's issues around the increase in the cemetery and suggested purchase of garbage bins, etc. I might point then, if we go to the cash position, we have an unrestricted cash position of $320,000. That was at $56,000 at 30 June. So that's a pleasing position, and the reconciliation is shown there. So obviously there's the detailed report to sit behind that. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take that.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Your note. And thank you for the report. It makes interesting reading. The general fund deficit of $6.2 million. Consolidated forecast is made look brighter by the water and sewer funds and Southwest Zone 4 management money that we can't touch and not allowed to use. So for anyone who thinks the general fund is going all right, and I spoke to the general manager recently and said, things look better, and the further we went in the year, it would get better. I'm struggling to come with that, given that Hilltops Council has more posts on social media looking for people to work here than any other organisation in New South Wales. So when they all get employed, when we did the time, we'll just see what the general fund says then. In regard to that matter, I've got a question in regard to internal reserves on page 118. And the top of it has got leave entitlements of $1.73 million, but it would appear that they were all internal reserves from the former Young Council, and that's how it reads.
Sorry, Councillor, let's get my report. I've got the summary there.
Page 118.
Yeah,
that's one page before 119. Would you like a hard copy?
That's all. Sorry. No, I didn't bring out a hard copy.
Oh, look, I could ask a million questions throughout the employees and the sewer and water funds and how they don't seem to align up with what's been used and the allocations that's been used in the first quarter, but we'll leave them to the next quarter. They might balance out a little bit and I'll ask the questions then, but there's a lot of questions that could be asked. But I'm just a bit curious about 11191, internal reserves.
118.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the description is incorrect. It is employee leave entitlements for the Hilltops. I've checked against the financial statements for 2022. As I've indicated, they're not yet signed off by audit, so they are still draft, notwithstanding they are the accounts that we put forward. But on page 36 of those accounts, under item C13, the internal allocations, it lists employee leave entitlements of 1.173 million. So this is a general ledger item. There is only one general ledger item there that it's still been described as young, is an oversight from the general ledger.
Thank you for that, Mr. General Manager. And just as on that point then, could it have a report in at the next council meeting just to what the employee leave entitlements were for the former BOOROWA, Hardin and Young councils when we were amalgamated, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll leave the other questions till after the next quarter. Thank you.
Happy to take any questions if there's any information that you require. Just remember those figures on the front page are the adjusted budget position.
I understand what they are. Yep, thank you.
Just a question through you, Madam Mayor. Just in regard to on page 87, there's capital grants and contributions. There's some overstated programs and effectively double ups. Is the term I'm going to use. Can you just explain what those double ups were and how they would have come about? Because I'm just a bit surprised that we'd have significant levels of doubling up through the same program, or was it doubling up between programs?
I could defer to the Director of Infrastructure, but I think basically they were errors in terms of spending. So, and there are adjustments between the LRCIP programs. So we've spent money for the LRCIP that should have been raised to recovery or something. Yeah. I can give you the detail on that.
Okay. So
specific detail.
It's an internal allocation error.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got a question in regards to the CCTV in Euston Park. When was it installed, and when did council request the installation of it?
That I'm not sure of. I do know that the CCTV has been installed, but I'm not certain of that.
I'll ask the General Manager then.
Director of Infrastructure says around June, July this year.
It was requested by council.
Not that I'm aware of.
I think the director said it was installed then. Director, it was attached to a grant application for that park.
I don't think so.
Mr. General Manager, can you please explain how $15,560 worth of capital expenditure can be completed without a resolution of council and without funding? I'm not suggesting that it's not required at all. It's the process that concerns me, given our $6 million operating deficit.
Councillor, I'll have to take that on notice to see how.
Can we have a fulsome report provided to council, including details of the purchase orders?
Yeah, we can do that. Yep.
Could I just ask a question? It mightn't be really on this, but with our recent weather events, for the Murrumburra precinct upgrade, where I noticed that there's been quite major damage to the creek structure, are we looking at a movement in expenditure on that area? I'm just thinking about any reconstruction that has to be done, and whether fish ladders will be able to be even constructed in that area. What are the paths we go along?
That's going to come out of the December report, because obviously a lot of this work around roads, stormwater, etc., has been October, November. I mean, yes, there was some prior to that, but I think the October, November, there is an application going in for grant funding, and some of the weather events are then also going to the insurer where we can't, if we think that we can't get them through grant funding.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, could look, rather than a verbal explanation now, the 758,000 reduction in the LRCIP that I gather should have been allocated the roads to recovery program. Could we get a report on that as well, please? So I'm sorry, I don't fully understand what's happened.
Any other questions?
That'll come to the next council meeting. Thank you.
Okay. There are
one more question. Yep. While we're just going there, just looking through there with the employee costs for the sewer and water funds. And I'm a bit staggered anyway. Employee costs for Water and Young, $1,084,000. BOOROWA was just under 300,000, and Harden's 193,000. So we've got 5 times the workforce working on Young Water than the other 2 council areas, or are we subsidising again? Don't have to answer it now, but I'd like to know the answer next meeting, please.
Your comment is noted. I can see your point.
Thank you.
Just, Madam Mayor, I think
yes,
I do believe that the previous CFO had made some comment about that there was a requirement to have a employee's home to a cost centre. They're my words, not necessarily the CFO's. And that was the reason why that was $1 million. From my understanding was that where the expenditure was incurred against other locations, that it would be transferred across. But I don't believe that council's ever been advised how much of the $1,084,000 has ever been spent out of the water fund at the end of the year. So it would be, if we can get that information provided back to us for last year, that'd probably answer the question that Councillor Ingram has raised. Would that be right, Councillor Ingram?
I'd be happy with that result. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Just through Madam Mayor, the 132,000 reduction in their regional roads repair allocation, is that a withdrawal of a grant or a reduction in funding, or the work doesn't need to be done?
Sorry, Councillor Fronte, yeah, the work does need to be done. It was basically just a transfer within that capital grant.
So it's not a reduction in money received?
No. Can I just ask Councillor Armstrong and Ingram, what was the request on that previous, if I can go back, that I just want to know specifically,
Actual wages.
you're talking about the wages, cost of sewer and water, etc.
Well,
or each of the funds?
Water in particular, because the way it was explained to council at the time was that there had to be a cost centre that homed the wages, and that was simply for the sake of having somewhere. That was the cost centre that was selected, and that there would be costing adjustments done through the year, and at the end of the year, the $1 million most likely wouldn't be spent because there'd be internal adjustments moving those costs about. But if clearly, as Councillor Ingram has suggested, if they're not, then quite clearly the water supply at Young would be subsidising other works.
I hear your comment. I put out a revised procurement procedure. We had to just hold that back, given the stress on the infrastructure team, and that involves the procurement manager going around all the sites, because we are aware that we've got a question in our minds about the accuracy of the coding when somebody suddenly dragged onto one of the water or sewer funds. So we had to just stall that with the work that's currently happening with the roads and the storms. It was due to commence mid-October. I issued that 30 September, that will be training, particularly to all the outdoor infrastructure planning staff. That's the intention of that, to make sure that people are coding correctly.
Thank you for that, Director. And it's just a comment I'd make. It's a shame that here we are 6.5 years in and we can't get the basics right. So no reflection on yourself or your team. It's just a simple fact of life that Hilltops Council's been here for 6.5 years and we haven't got the basics, so we can put figures in that we can trust them where they are. But thank you for your work.
You'll all be pleased to know that Technology One announced a record profit yesterday.
Yeah, been a great help to us.
In the back of us.
Yeah. Obviously, local governor using it now.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, councillors. If I put it to you, those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. If we turn to 1210, 2216, carryovers 2021, 2022. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconder, Councillor Ingram. CFO, since you're standing up there, do you want to make any comments?
And just in relation to the carryovers, just to be clear there that the SCF funding, which was the Stronger Community Fund and the New Council Implementation Fund, there's been a request put to the government for extension of those grants. There's no way, if you look at them, that they were going to be spent. You'll see quite a few of them there with the deadline 31 December. That's just not going to happen. And so an application's gone in from the Director of Infrastructure into the grant bodies for a rollover of those funds. You'll notice there's quite a few of them there.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I note that there's the Murrumbara precinct. There's a grant reserve of 82,448. I think our total grant funding is 3.5 million, but I haven't picked up where we obviously haven't received most of our grant because we haven't done the work, so we can't move a carryover if we haven't got the money. But how is it being accounted for?
I'll certainly, if any costs are incurred, they'll hit the ledger, the project codes, but I'll just defer to the Director of Infrastructure.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Flannery, that is only one of the grants we've got. There's, from memory, about 3 or 4 for Murrumbara, and the others are not captured on this sheet.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's because as you quite rightly, we've tendered out for the work, and so then we do progress payments and acquit as we go along and get the funding for that as we go along. Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I was going to bring it up a little bit later, this matter in the Capital Works, but it's mentioned in here, so I'll mention it here. At a recent meeting, I asked in regard to how much funding was available and where we were up to with the prevention of the stormwater flooding the CBD in Young. The answer came back that there was $8.1 million, which I knew. But where we're up to and what we'd done, the answer was nothing. Given the last month, and I'm not psychic with the 2 storm occasions since we had that meeting, I'm hoping someone today can tell me that a little bit more has been done in regard to the planning and works to be able to at least start to control the stormwater that causes the flooding. So I don't care who wants to answer it. I'll leave it to the staff to inform us, and not just inform me. I'm asking this question because, as you would imagine, there are a lot of people asking councillors, and the last time I got a reply was basically nothing. Now, there's a page and a half put in there today with aspirational about the CRJO. So I'm hoping that someone can give me a substantial report on where this project's up to.
Councillor Ingram, I think a report went to council, I'm testing my memory here, April, May earlier this year, for the details of the 8.1 million funding, where we were contributing 25%. That has now been approved, and the director, so I can state that we've now got that funding approved, and Director of Infrastructure could comment what the next processes are.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Ingram, at the moment, the deed was signed about 2 weeks ago, and we're talking to DPE to get the scope set up for a design.
I'll just jump in, and the deed's been signed. We're aware that the money is there. Now, this had been worked on. I get the council 2012, I think early 2013. I was asked to sit on a committee in regard to the stormwater retention in Young. And I know there's been a substantial amount of work done because we achieved grant funding. They have it looked at. They talked about retention basins. Some really simple work would be to get over, and I see a notice the other day but on the railway line behind the visitor centre and do some work there before council does get sued. But I'm hoping someone can tell me or present to council what that money and those grants achieved in the planning for this to happen. To be told that, well, we're going to see someone, our consultant, to draw up a plan after 9 years. Where did all the grant money go that we got to have people look at this and work with? And I went to meeting after meeting and plans were drawn up. Surely council can look over their shoulder and find where them plans are and what they were, and if they're going to work or implement them, or are we starting from scratch again?
So, to you, Madam Mayor, again, I'm not the director of the infrastructure. And my understanding is that the reason we got the additional funding, the $6 odd million that we had to contribute to, was because of that work that was done, because it was ready. So that's why the DPI came to us and said, we think this is a go. That process took as long as it did for us to get the paperwork, and so I signed it as soon as I got it, because I wanted it to happen. So that's the stormwater drainage within the town in that area near IGA, etc. I believe you're also referring to a lot of the work that was done in the retention basins. Now, I understand, and I can absolutely stand corrected, there's B1 and B2. It's not the bananas, but it's A and many ones. I know during this time, my time here, I've signed for plans in relation to acquisitions of lands. I know there has been work done on those retention bases. I apologise, I don't have the detail. What I believe is I can do is there has been a lot of money spent. There has been retention basin worked. It has progressed. At the meeting, the December meeting, I'll bring a report detailing all of that work, so you can see where all of that money has been spent. Certainly during my time.
Much appreciated, Mr. General Manager. And having the money that's been spent and what's been done, it's time we opened up the community about the plans of what we're going to do, the rest of it, to rectify the problem. We've been sitting down on this for too long, and I know we had to wait for extra money for that big $6 million, and we're lucky to get that, and it's very good. So I would urge staff to prioritise this matter, because it's been hanging around for a long time, and I know we're overworked and underpaid, but it's time we assured our community, especially given the storm season has just started, that we are actually trying to do something about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Madam Mayor, through you again.
It's Councillor Hogg.
About a month ago, the whole of Hilltops had a huge downpour and we had a lot of flooding everywhere. And at the time, I didn't realise it, but the IGA here in Young got flooded or almost flooded. And just at our last meeting a fortnight ago here, Councillor Armstrong recommended, because we were supposed to have another 50 or 60 mils come down, recommended that we get in and clean that ditch out underneath. And apparently it wasn't done. And I've just seen some photos of the flooding that occurred. Now, this was, and I remember at the time it was brought up about how much we could clean up because there was rail lines in there and all this sort of stuff. And it came to the conclusion that there was nothing there, just get in and clean it. And
through you, Madam Mayor, that's not the case. We needed permission, Director of Infrastructure.
Madam Mayor, we had to go to, although it's a disused railway line, we still need to get permission to work in that area, and that took time to get done. So that's why it was only done last week. So it did take some time to get the permission from, I think it's UGL or something like that now.
Sorry, permission from who?
I think it's like they're the management company for the railways.
It used to be John Holland.
Yes,
and
UGL.
it changed to UGL. So, yep.
Can I ask a question? I know we've seen some of the plans for the drainage, and I realised that we had to wait till the deeds were signed. And I presume Public Works do some of the works, do they? Or do we do?
They are the lead.
They're the lead. And we're so taking up the point that was made about when we can put this out to the public, when will we be able to show the public exactly what is going to happen?
I'll be guided by the department in relation to what is shared is not the right word, but certainly conveyed to the community. But the community is aware that we did receive that $8 million. But I think it's a broader issue about, or just defer to Councillor Ingram's type part. I think it's a broader issue about the whole network of the stormwater issue in relation to the master plan that was incepted some years ago. And that's, I think, through the report that I've now committed to for the December meeting, potentially I'll get our communications teams in places to put out information in relation to that, not just through the council report.
So
it would go a long way to relieving the community's concern.
I agree with you, Councillor Ingram.
Oh,
so I presume that this part with the Public Works is only part of the overall plan.
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, with respect, I think it's actual achievements and results that the community want to know about. They don't want to hear any more promises. They've had promises for a long time now, and there's been no response. What they would probably prefer is some hard, fast dates for when something will actually be achieved.
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly the work that was in our control, where we're not the lead, I can certainly detail the work in relation to the retention basin that I've referred to, and I think a discussion with the department on their proposed timeline will garner some more there. But we did have to wait until the deed came on board before we could move that along. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Well, let's put this to the vote.
Before we do, just an observation. I made it at the workshop that there are only two jobs in there that are revenue funded. The rest are either out of grants or reserves, which have been established through grants. I believe that come our second QBR, council will need to make some pretty hard decisions about its capital works programs. It's my own opinion that the capital works program is far too aggressive for council's capacity, and that it will need to be trimmed back quite substantially because we just can't achieve all the capital works that we've got on the books. That will mean that even more costs will be moved out of capital works back into our operating statement, which is going to hurt us in terms of our wages and potentially materials as well, materials and contracts as well. But we've got to be realistic about it. And I think the next QBR warrants at least a couple of hour workshop so we can strategise to see where we can go in terms of our capital works program funding and maximisation of our cash reserves. Because hanging over all of this is going to be our road network in absolute tatters.
As it is over the whole state. Thanks, Councillor Armstrong. Did you want to make a final comment or anything? No.
All right. Sorry. Just on the two caravan parks, the reserve grant carrier funds for BOOROWA and Harden. What are those funding amounts for? Page 121, there's 137,000 for BOOROWA and 33,000 for Harden.
Sorry.
They're not very old. The Director of Infrastructure, they were done it when it was merged.
Through you, Madam Mayor, BOOROWA Caravan Park, there still needs to be work done on the amenities block. There needs to be a kitchen area. The kitchen area needs to be enlarged there. Then there's an office that needs to be put in with a kiosk for bookings and stuff. That was part of the original grant. Harden one, the only outstanding items there is the office building and a booking system. Now, both of those buildings have been ordered. It's a prefab building. We're just waiting for the delivery. The company that's delivering it's had now about 3 times, I think they've pushed the date out. They gave us various reasons, first COVID and whatever reasons they gave. So that's still the work that needs to be done at those 2 caravan parks.
Thank you. Yes, I think that was we were informed about that at a previous meeting too, weren't we? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Councillor Piper, then.
So this money is for a camp kitchen at BOOROWA Caravan Park.
No, incorrect. It was revoted to upgrade the office administration and amenities buildings.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
All right. Let's put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors, for I think a good discussion. Go to 12, 14, 22, 20, DA. No, 12, 11. Sorry, pardon me. 140. I'm just a few pages ahead. I'll look on here. 12, 11, cash and investment report. Second, okay, Councillor Flannery.
Question.
Microphone.
There's 2 deposits there with St George Bank, which were lodged in December, so not that long ago. Interest rates had started to move by then, and the 3 below it are substantially better rates. Why are we getting such low rates there?
I'm sure we would have tested the market at that time in terms of what was available. You're talking about the 4 million and the 4.6 million, those 2 items.
Yes.
We do try and balance the portfolio amongst the AAA rating. We're not allowed to go below AAA rating investments, and T Corp, who loan us money, monitor that as part of their charter. I can find out for you at the time. I'm not aware why St George was selected at that time, but I can let you know.
That would be much appreciated. Look, every dollar counts. I don't think we owe St George Bank. It would be different if it was a local credit union, but I don't think we owe St George Bank shareholders any money.
No.
And I actually get a daily bulletin, and I'm pretty sure that we could have got much better rates back then.
They were lodged the same date. the same date as we took 4% and 4.1%, 4.07% for 1 million, 2 million, 1 million, we took 2.8 and 1.6 for a combined total of $670,000. Like, yeah, I don't know, but I'd have to concur with Councillor Flannery. It just doesn't look good.
I'll come back to you on that.
Why would
What the purpose or the reason was or rationale at the time. There would have been some inhibiting factors, I'm sure, but let me come back to you.
Good luck, because they're on the same dates. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much. Look forward to it.
Question 3, Madam Mayor. Yes. Just in regard to the bottom table, we've got $500,000 in Bendigo Bank at 0.65, ANZ Bank and NAB at call, both at relatively modest interest rates, and also the about $1 million in round figures, a bit under $1 million there, at fairly paltry interest rates, at banks that I don't believe we have a banking contract with. Why are we holding $36,000 in a separate account at the NAB when we bank with the Commonwealth? Or perhaps why are we holding $78,000 with the ANZ? Are they loan repayments that we've paid in advance?
Some of the National Australia Bank are loan repayments, and but I can certainly come back to it. Yeah, definitely some of the NAB.
Have we got any loans with Bendigo Bank?
I'll check that for you. I don't believe so, but let me check that for you. I know with the NAB accounts, we were trying to consolidate the bank accounts. We couldn't because we've got loans with NAB.
Look, I'm aware that it's a common practice to keep the next loan payment in an account at those institutions, so as you don't miss the payment. That's prudent risk management, but $750,000 is $750,000. As Councillor Flannery said, every penny counts when you're broke.
I'm sorry,
I'm paraphrasing there.
And look, just for the record, by my calculations, we're short 120,000 for that 6-month period on those deposits.
Let me come back to you on that. Okay. And yes, you are right. It would buy a truck. But I also say a much needed truck.
Yes, we'll look forward to the truck.
If only it wasn't so serious, yeah.
All right. If there's no more discussion, put to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We turn to 12.11, 12.12.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Ingram. And any discussion? Want to make any comments?
Look, we're doing a lot of work. Obviously, not all the write-offs that were approved at the last meeting have been processed due to the fact that we're waiting to enforce settlement. So those balances will go down. There's now another drive on actually reducing our debts. So there's a number of conversations happening with a number of entities that have allowed their debts to increase. So I've got a lot of work to do there again to get the cash in.
Okay, thank you. I'll put it. Those in favour? Against? Unanimous. Thank you. Turning to D applications.
No,
12.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
12.13, 22.19, D application statistics for October 2022. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Any comments? Questions? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you. Moving on. We're up to 12.14. Am I right?
Yes.
12/14/2020. This is a DA 2022-0170 subdivision, 2 lots at 22 Normans Road, Young. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconder, Councillor Dodd. Comments, questions? Absolute silence. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Whoops, lost my tag.
Just a question. Have we had any feedback or response on our draft LEP to the Office of Planning?
Yeah, I think, well, we're still waiting for confirmation from the Minister at this stage. We can give a more fulsome brief at December. I think it's appropriate that we do that to see where the status is. We are hopeful. However, we're in their hands. Thank you.
Can I just give an anecdotal addendum to that? At I think it was CRJO or the Country Mayors, can't think, but I was approached by a woman who was been working on it, on the LEP, and she was very happy with it and said that it was progressing well, which I think is positive on all sides.
I'd love the signature. Thank you.
All right. 12/16/22 distribution of Council's Financial Assistance Sponsorship Fund. The recommendation is there.
I'll move this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram, and a seconder, Councillor Hewson.
The first comment I'd make is, and I understand how it works, and you're not to indicate to anyone, it's up to the individual to declare if they have a interest and a conflict in any matters, and it's asked very early in our council meeting. I note, Madam Mayor, that you haven't declared an interest in this matter, but I noticed at the actual sponsorship meeting, you did declare an interest. So did you declare an interest at the sponsorship meeting for something to do, or you just neglected to declare that tonight?
I think the second. Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
So would you like to actually declare an interest in this matter?
I will declare an interest in the matter to do with the hub.
It's on page.
Which is on
The
page.
Young Neighbourhood Centre.
Young Neighbourhood Centre.
I wasn't going to name. I wasn't going to
Yep,
name. Centre.
and I will take no part in the discussion.
Thank you, because councillors, this sponsorship fund has struggled in the last few years. Some dark clouds have hung over it as to where the money's been handed out to. And once again, the sponsorship fund has been brought into an area that doesn't sit very well with myself. I wasn't going to name the organisation because I think they're innocent parties. But when it comes to the distribution of funds and council's money, ratepayers' money, we need to be assured that integrity is at the top of the table. If Hilltops Council's name's to be attached to something, then we take the flack or the joy that comes out of it. This matter, and I know the councillor involved will know who I'm talking about, and the organisation, close ties, and what councillors didn't see who weren't on the financial assistant sponsorship fund was the minutes where a request was made for money for a reason that I think was inappropriate. I don't blame the organisation. I think they were given poor advice. So what I'd say to councillors, before you go and commit or promise funds, council funds, to any of your close community committees that you may be attached to, have a long, deep breath before you do it, especially if you have a known conflict of interest with that organisation. Well, I will leave the matter there because the matter will be in the hands of ICAC, and they can work out if the corruption that I deemed could have occurred might happen. So other than that, the reports there in front of you of the allocation of the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Any further questions? comments? If not, I'll put it to vote. All those in favour?
Unanimous with Madam Mayor not voting.
Thank you, councillors. All right, let's turn now to our capital works cost report, 12/17/22/23, and the recommendation is there that council receive and note the report. Do I have a mover?
So move that way.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. As seconder, Councillor Hewson. CFO, you're at the podium. You'd like to make some comments?
Once again, Madam Mayor. Just let me get it up. I think this is this capital works report. It came out from a motion from Councillor Armstrong in September. We weren't able to get it ready in October. I'll just might point out there's one more bullet to be inserted. The other fields on the there's some closed items on the spreadsheet which are listed there in those bullets. The other thing we need to insert in there is also commitments, so that it's clear that from each project we know where we're up to. And we're going to be working on this report internally tomorrow between finance and infrastructure. So this is the first cut of this report. We've had some feedback already, and this is a dump straight out of the ledger. I'm happy to get any other feedback that people have. So there will be other columns that will be put on the end of the spreadsheet there and completed.
Just three, Madam Mayor. The CFO, perhaps for the benefit of councillors who didn't attend that briefing, if you could just run across the top headings for the columns and just explain to councillors what those columns represent.
Sure. Yep. Most of them are pretty well self-explanatory. We put in there the budget, say on the first line, community services. If there's any other source funding from revenue, which there's not many in the capital works, as you know. The expenditure to date, 22/23, and then the remaining budget to spend, and the whole of life project expenditure. And then on the end of that will be a narrative from infrastructure around the work that needs to be completed, and that will correspond with those bullets. They will be inserted. Finance and infrastructure working on that now. Haven't completed it, but we've got a big workshop tomorrow. We'll be putting those points there plus commitments. So that'll be purchase orders that have been raised with a statement about where the project's at.
Presumably the whole of life project expenditure is the expenditure kept brought forward from previous years.
Correct.
So even though the budget may be, I don't know, $20,000,
yeah,
we can have a whole of life project expenditure of $4,950, which hopefully will turn it to $24,950.
Yeah, correct.
Through you, Madam Mayor, can I just request that we get the headings on each page next time?
So your request, yes. So, I can arrange to have that done, yes. It'll push the sheet a bit longer, but that's okay.
To you again, Madam Mayor. Going back to community centres, I notice here BOOROWA museum floor replacement. Has anything been done with that? We've got a $20,000 budget and funding revenue of -20, so I presume it hasn't been done.
There's no expenditure to date, right? Yeah, hasn't expenditure to date still.
Councillor Piper, which page are you on?
That one?
Are you on 222?
First page.
Yeah,
Yep.
222.
Okay, which one are you querying?
Community centres, BOOROWA museum floor replacement. Because I happen to know that there was an accident there on the floor.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
So look, through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the funding it's still to be funded from revenue, as the table shows, and we are aware of it. It's just, I believe it's the scheduling of the work and getting in there and understanding what needs to be done. There's some discussion based on the preliminary advice that I've had, is it's potentially they need to take away some of the concrete and dirt along some of the edges of the building so that the airflow can go through. Some of the work that was done previously seemed to have contributed to the problem of the damp and the rotting of the floor. And once that's addressed, then they had to get into the floor to see what areas that they can do. So that's the advice that I've had. So we're aware, it's on the list. I'm not sure when that work is scheduled. I'm sorry.
I would suggest 20,000 won't touch it.
I believe it's the indicative type part, as I said, is the initial type work, and then it's assessment on how much needs to be done once there. I believe that the main problem is there's one is the stumping on some of these older buildings, but two, I believe I was advised by the lady there, I won't say her name, but she advised me that I believe it's just the floor. There's actually no stumping in that museum building at BOOROWA, and it's just the flooring itself, and it's very close to the dirt. So there's challenges there. Anyway, I'll keep you informed, councillors.
If we get a consultant in, that'll get rid of that money for us.
Yeah.
And then if we get the nut jobs in, they'll say there was a secret tunnel to somewhere.
Yeah, I believe that's the young. I believe the room is closed to the public, with the areas where it's the danger is. So yes, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to thank the staff, the CFO and his team, as well as the infrastructure team, for putting their heads together and coming up with this. I think this is going to be a great benefit to council and a huge benefit internally to the staff, being able to keep track of budgets and monitor expenditure. I do note, for the benefit of councillors, that these costs are actual costs to the 17th of November, not to the 30th of September, as per our QBR. So each month that we see this, we'll be seeing actual costs that are current costs.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and I think thanks to you for pushing this, which has been very beneficial for everybody. So thank you.
Agreed.
If I can just add, so I think of what I said to you on the phone last week. The December report, which then be finalised, will be the 30th of November figures. Yep.
Councillors Foreman and Fitzgerald, can you hear us?
You can now. I had mine off. Sorry.
You four, yes. Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 1218, the Rural Waste Facility Management Update. Recommendations there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Ingram, and seconded Councillor Armstrong. Any comments? Mr. Muller, do you want to make any comments?
Madam Mayor, what we've learned so far, the week that it's been operating, we had 15 people visit on last Tuesday, 10 on Thursday, sorry, and then on Saturday there was 30 people attending or dumping rubbish there. So far, the manager for water, waste and sewer, he said to me the feedback he's getting is very positive at this stage from unofficially the Kurawatha Residents Association. So it seems like they're happy with it.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that's being done.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to
yes,
convey some thanks to the acting director as well for the work that was done out at the Tubble Tip. Tubble Tip was an absolute shambles, and there's been some clean-up work done out there, which has certainly made a huge difference. I know that the locals are thoroughly engaged in maintaining their tip, and they have also been busily at work fixing infrastructure such as the gate, and catching errant members of the public as well. So I congratulate them with that, and I look forward to council completing the conversion to a transfer site.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. I think we all do, for all the tips. Thank you, Acting Director. Okay, put to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to 1219, the BOOROWA Horse Arena Project update.
So moved with question.
Second with comment.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery and Councillor Ingram. And I think we have the Acting Director up there to maybe hear the questions.
Look, I don't know, it's probably a comment as much as a question. Thank you for the report. I'm still at a total loss to understand how we can build these structures without allowing for the measures that are required to complete them. Having said that, it strikes me that a completely steel structure that needs a sort of fire engineering that's being proposed is bureaucracy gone mad. But that seems to be the society we live in. But is there a date that we expect this all to be completed by, would be my question. And do we have the money to do the work?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, the date is sort of, we're trying to finish it off by middle of December. What's outstanding at the moment is to get the two lots of land that the building is built on, to consolidate them. What we found out so far is it goes back to 1930 somewhere, where New South Wales Water transferred it over to ownership into a trust. We tried to get hold of the trust deed in the archives in Sydney. That was unsuccessful. And now we're doing a statutory declaration with the lawyers at the moment. So once that is done, signed off, it will literally take, from what the surveyor said to me, is about 2 or 3 days to get that consolidation done. Once that is done, then we can go over to the next step and get the compliance certificate from council, from the planning department. So we're pushing to get it done for middle of December at the latest. That's our target date at the moment.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it was comment.
Councillor Ingram.
This is just another prime example of how Hilltops Council hasn't worked. And I can say that because the staff that are involved at the start of this are no longer with the organisation. How it was ever allowed to go the way it did, to end up all this time later, and we're still trying to sort out titles, is again, as I've said one more time, a prime example how it's not working. Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment too and congratulate the staff that is here now in the way that they have worked through the problems that they have inherited and have consistently planned to get this project to completion. And there were a lot of problems. I'm not saying there weren't, but they were ones that this staff have inherited, and they're certainly working through them. So I thank them for that.
No, I just hope I made myself clear when I spoke that the staff I was referring to are no longer here. Just wanted to clarify that, Madam Mayor, with you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Question, sorry, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Who was the original applicant for the funding?
I wasn't going to ask how we actually built on land we haven't had consolidated.
No, I'm just wondering who the original applicant was.
Look, I don't know when the inception was. In the first 2 weeks, I was here with I think it was a photo opportunity with both yourself, Councillor Armstrong, and
that's when the now Minister for Local Government said the stormwater runoff would be fine. Councillor Armstrong, you were there.
It was discharged onto adjacent properties.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That was
all
illegal.
good.
And that, councillors, has been rectified. So,
but no, I'm just
thank you.
wondering
the stormwater money.
Who was the original applicant?
My understanding, it would be Hilltops Council because it got funding through grants at that time, but the actual applicant, as in the person who was the general manager, is that your question, Councillor Armstrong? Or
well, I'm just wondering whether it was a community applicant or whether it was a council applicant.
I don't believe it was a community one, but I can check. I'll take that on notice. I don't know, but I believe.
I think it might have been a community applicant.
Look, I'll be quite truthful. I find this report totally inadequate.
Yep.
They're the sorts of details that council should be aware of, that clearly council's not aware of. We need to know who the original applicant was. We need to know who the original approval authority was. We need to know who the original inspectors of the staff were that carried out the mandatory inspections during the construction of it. And if they weren't carried out, we probably need to know why they weren't carried out. My concern is that this has been a comedy of errors from day one, and it's $1 million comedy. I'm looking here at the last report to the SCCF3 BOOROWA Horse Arena Stage 2, project number 600335, and all I see is zeros across there with funds available. Yet I've been told that there's funds available in the grant to meet these other costs. Well, in the report that we've just reviewed, there's no funds available at all. So I guess something's not gelling here, and I think that certainly the community deserves better, and I think that council needs better information. So I'd very much like this report to come back to council again with a lot deeper detail included in it.
I'm in your hands, councillors.
I'll move that amendment to the report that we receive and note the report and request I'm the seconder, but a more detailed report around applicant decision making and decision making approvals and funding.
Governance is the issue. If there was adequate governance, it probably wouldn't have been built on someone else's land.
Microphone, please.
Apologies. If there was, the governance is the issue around this. There appears to be a severe lack of governance attached to it on the face of it. So I think that we probably need to find out. It's not the current staff, I might add, but we need to know what the problem was so as we can avoid it again in the future. Otherwise, we are falling over our feet the way that Hilltops has done continually since its formation.
So through you, Madam Mayor, certainly we'll endeavour to provide the information in the way in which you've articulated that, councillor. I am dependent upon what the records were kept for those decisions that you referred to is held within the system. I just make that clear that I don't know what we don't know.
But we can only know what we do know.
That's correct, and we will make a more fulsome report if that's the will of the council. Thank you.
Madam.
Well, I do think it raises problems associated when community organisations are successful with grant funding and councils are left to finish off the approvals process.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just before we vote on this, just some questions for clarification from our deputy. So at the moment, the item that's going to take the longest time is the working out of the building on two separate blocks. How far away is the car park for disabled people? And I believe at the back, all the tarring is already done and finished. And was there lighting, I think, to go?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, lighting has never been included in any of the grant applications. We went through it because we got a request from public and we checked it and there was nothing. So the disabled car park is very close to be completed. There's a retaining wall in front that they're also finishing off. The amenities has been ordered, so that is just a prefab that will be placed in where the car park is. And then basically that is it. The project is finished.
Thank you.
I might have missed something there with Councillor Armstrong's question through you, Madam Mayor. So we still have the funds, the grant funds to complete this project. We're not dipping into any other source of funds?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, we're not dipping. We're using the last grant funding that we received for the stormwater. So a lot of the work is going under that. The remediation for the engineers and stuff that came from the urban renewal project for BOOROWA, that we use that some of that money there.
And the work you're fairly sure will be finished, hopefully by the middle of December.
We hope so. The only one that may not be finished is the amenities one. So we're trying our best to get the supplier to deliver it so we can put it in.
Okay, thank you. Righto, we have before us Council receive and note the report, and B, more detailed report on original applicant and governance around the project be given. Okay. Those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Next one, the works report. That's 12/20, 22/26 works report.
So move or second.
Councillor Ingram, you moved. Am I right in saying that?
I did.
Councillor Flannery seconded. Thank you. Any comments?
Yes, I've got a question, Madam Mayor, through you. I noticed we've had a bit of good weather. Well, we've had firstly, thank you to the works and roads crew who have worked so hard, I think, through what's been a very difficult period. I think they've done a very good job through very trying times, particularly the situation was just chaos in many areas and still is. I've noticed that our crews have been doing work. They're back into doing some stabilisation work. One of the roads Burley Griffin Road, about 1 kilometre east of Harden, is now broken up badly. How's that working, doing the heavy patching or stabilisation work on RMS assets? Is there a program we have to meet? I'm concerned that we lost $3 million of annual contract work, and now we seem to be doing repair work for them when we've got a lot of our own assets that are in urgent need of repair. Have we got a timeline to meet, or we don't get the job? Have we got a contract that we must meet? I would have thought that we should say to them, if we don't get the major contracts, we don't do the minor works.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Flannery, yes, we've got an agreement with RMS, and there's only one crew that is servicing the RMS crews, basically. So they do have a program of works. It's, from what I understand, it's quite an aggressive one. We are the second largest contractor to RMS in the region. So they do rely on us heavily to do some of their work as well.
So we'll be getting more rebuild work, which is where we make money from them in the future?
Yes, absolutely, Councillor.
That's good to know. But the issue with it being trying to get the roads to stabilise, well, it's broken up badly just outside Harden. I don't know whether we have to go and repair that at our expense or RMS.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Flannery, no, that's under RMS. That is part of the work that if there's a breakup like that, for instance, RMS will assess it, and then they will talk to our crews, and they will then give us money to fix it. There's various reasons why the roads break up, and they know it. They're quite aware of it.
And is that because of the Burley Griffin Way?
That's correct.
And the other question, which is not in the works report, but what's referred to as the crossroads at Gaylong, the Boyer Road, Limestone Way, Burley Griffin Way intersection, which was rebuilt as part of the then Sabelco, now Greymont 320 program, I think it was, has broken up very badly. Does that come back to the council didn't get that work? Does that come back to the contractor? It's quite dangerous there at that intersection.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Flannery, I'll take that one on notice and I'll come back to you on that one. So I just get my facts straight before I answer you, please.
Your question, through you, Madam Mayor. Sorry. The there's a significant failure here at the intersection of BOOROWA Street and Clark Street. I'm just wondering whether that's a road failure or whether there's a contractor doing any works in that location. It's been there for some while.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Armstrong, that's another one I'll take on notice. I'll go and investigate and I'll definitely come back to you.
If you drive down there, you might not come back.
Okay.
It's an abyss, right? More than the pothole, I think you find.
Councillor Ingram, you had a...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I, like everyone else, know that a lot of roads are in a mess and in a bad state, and Councillor Flannery's comment about that road that was done for Zabelco, it's a disgrace, all right? But I've got a couple of simple requests. If you drive from here to Wombat, there's two, what I'll call potholes. There's a few spots where the edge of the road is a bit failing, but there's two major potholes that will take out the front end of your car. From here to Wombat, there's only two of them. The rest have been done pretty good. Could it please be noted, if someone was to go out there with their patching shovels, there's only two. One about 5 k's out and one at the 10 k marker on the way towards Wombat on a very busy highway. That 10 minutes work could solve that problem. They're what I call, they're damaging. They're big. The second one I'd like to comment on, and I would ask, taking another councillor's line once, report that it could cause a fatality just out on the Millvale Road, 5 k's out, and there's, again, the road's broken up in a number of areas. It's broken up pretty bad. There's restricted signs there, slow down and go through it. But on the entrance to town, about 5 k's out, there is a really nasty hole and failure of the road. Accident causing, if there happens to be a vehicle coming the other way and someone tried to dodge it or hit it by not taking notice of the slow down signs, could possibly throw them in front of ongoing traffic or off the road. It needs addressing. I know that there's a lot of areas, but I've been driving around and a lot of it's broken up and it'll take time. But there's just two spots that I think need addressing rather sooner than later. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Ingram, thank you for that. We'll certainly get the guys out tomorrow to do it there.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just another question to the General Manager. When we spoke about today, after the last meeting, whenever, in regard to putting slow down signs up, restricted speed zones, and that's a great idea. And the next suggestion was to contact Grain Corp, so they talk to their drivers, and then the next phone call, and I presume whether Madam Mayor made or not, was to the police to make sure that they made a presence, because it would only take one person to get booked for speeding in them grain trucks to slow the rest down. So I don't know if that was followed through with or not. If not, it might be idea, Madam Mayor, if you were to speak to the police commander in regard to those sections of the road that have got restricted speed zones, and see if we can't implement them before someone does have a terrible accident.
I certainly will take that on board.
Don't take it on board, please, Madam Mayor. Please do it.
So through Madam Mayor, I certainly have seen additional police out in some areas, but I won't take credit for that. But
Madam Mayor, through you to our deputy again, going on what Councillor Ingham said, the patching work has been really good from BOOROWA to Young, except at the top of the hills when you come down into Maringo. Now, I've just driven it tonight, and the patching is pretty good. But I'll beat yours, Councillor Ingham. The hole, there's one hole they've left, and it's that big, like that, and they've left it. The rest of it has been patched reasonably well, and you can't understand why they were there, and now that the next hole's just there, they haven't done it. There's not even some in it that's come out. There's been nothing there.
Madam Mayor, I hope it's a gremlin that crept into the cruise that they didn't do it, and I apologize, and they will definitely be there tomorrow.
Thank you. Righto, I think we could talk about potholes forever. Any other questions, comments? I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Next one is action summary report on page 246. And the recommendation is there that council note the status of the action plan. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Ingram and Councillor Fitzgerald.
Question, Madam Mayor. Look, it's I raised a number of issues that hadn't been dealt with at the last council meeting, and I haven't seen any response in the business paper or in the action summary report. Could I please be advised?
Councillor Flannery, on page 253,
missed it.
the last page, and we've attempted to answer your question. So it's the last page of the action summary. It's the first box. Advice be provided regarding the bridge and Murrumburra, etc.
And weren't they to come back to this report, to this meeting?
Sorry?
I did request that those detailed responses come back to this.
There is the response required by Transport for New South Wales. So this is providing a status on what we can answer and what we can't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
All right, if there are no more.
One other question. I just noticed, I just don't see anywhere in here where we're starting our budgeting process. And I know it's something that we haven't discussed, but I'm just wondering if the General Manager by next month can provide us with a timetable for the ensuing budget.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. We've had that discussion with the CFO. Is that we're planning part of the process towards better budgeting, which is something that really we want to happen. Both Mr. Smith and myself, we are planning at a timetable, and part of the work that's been happening on the capital works reports, etc., is feeding into that. So yes, we can provide a report with a timetable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Just a timetable would be wonderful.
Yep, timetable. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions.
I'll just
comments?
having
Councillor Flannery.
not noticed that, and my apologies, but the response in relation to the caravan park part, the question was really why are the caravan parks charging different rates? And it says there's the fees and charges are as per the Hilltops Council website, but that's not what's occurring. And there were a number of parts to it. The dump site down at the showground is undermining the fees and charges of the caravan park. And there was also a significant discount being provided for the en-suited cabins, but no, on the basis that one of the cabins was rented for a long period by a subcontractor to the council, which provided security of tenure, I guess, from council's perspective. However, the non-en-suited cabins, where there's people who've been there for a number of years, don't get any discount to the schedule of rates. So was there a favour done for a contractor for council? Or, I mean, the people who have non-en-suites, what I mean is they walk down the path to the open toilets and they've been long-term occupants. Why are they paying the standard rate? Was one of the questions I was wanting answered. And are we shooting ourselves in the foot vis-a-vis dump sites at showgrounds or wherever they're located relative to our caravan park charges?
I need to take that on notice, Councillor. Thank you for your fulsome questions. I might actually call you again to make sure that I have all of the details. I'll call you directly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just a question of Councillor Flannery. Which caravan park are you referring to?
The Hardin and Boorowa ones have, well, I'm advised by people who have stayed there, they charge different rates. So I can only go on what I'm told by the people that stay there.
I'm not doubting you. I've never inquired about that. I was just wondering which particular one has the council.
It was Hardin and Boorowa I was referring to.
Okay, thank you for that. I think if we finish the discussion, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to correspondence for information, and the reports, media releases are there, and the circulars.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconded, Councillor Ingram. Everybody in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. 12:23. Committee reports.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Second, Councillor Mackie. All those in favour? Yes, unanimous. Thank you. Questions without notice? No questions. Notice motion none. We'll move. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Piper. We will move.
Vote.
Vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you.
While we're moving out of confidential, and it was into confidential, sorry. It was.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. In relation to closed session, report 15.2-22/31, purchase request for purchase of council property. Council resolved to defer the matter. In relation to report 15.3-22/32, contract pricing RFT 621 of 2022, winning and crushing gravel panel. Council resolved to receive and note the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager, and I will declare this meeting closed at 7:30. And thank you, councillors, for your contribution to this meeting this evening. Thank you.